according to St. John.
Glory to you, O Lord.
At that time, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, in Hebrew called Bethsaida, which had 5 porticos. And these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the movement of the water. Where an angel of the Lord went down in certain seasons into the pool and troubled the water. Whoever stepped in first after the troubling of the water was healed of whatever disease he had. One man was there who had been ill for 38 years. When Jesus saw him and knew that he had been lying there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be healed?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is troubled, and while I am going, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your pallet and walk." And at once the man was healed, and he took up his pallet and walked. Now that day was the Sabbath, so the Jews said to the man who was cured, "It is the Sabbath, it is not lawful for you to carry your pallet." But he answered them, "The man who healed me said to me, 'Take up your pallet and walk.'" They asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Take up your pallet and walk'?" Now the man who had been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, and there was a crowd in the place. Afterward Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse will befall you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had healed them.
Glory to you, O Lord. Glory to you. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and to those in the tombs bestowing life. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and to those in the tombs bestowing life.
Please be seated. Christ is risen.
Indeed, he is risen.
Christos anesti.
Alithos anest.
Christos voskreси.
Voices of Christ.
Today, the gospel reading, we remember the man at the pool of Bethesda, the man who has been paralyzed. It is interesting that today we think and we read about a man who was not only paralyzed for 1 day or for 10 days, but 38 years. That's a big, huge portion of someone's life. I don't know about you, but that would make me about 10 years old, right around there, 9 years old, when I became crippled. That would make most of my life that I had been paralyzed. Now, when Jesus walked into this place, you got to remember that you got to put yourself sometimes into the situation. You can't imagine that this place was probably smelling very good, right? And it probably wasn't very clean, right? You had a whole bunch of people that were paralyzed, lame, blind, deaf. It doesn't matter what your ailment was. The hope was, when they saw the angel, that they believed that the angel would come down, when they saw that the angel came down and disturbed the waters, stirred up the waters, the first person in would be healed. The first person. Only one person every time would be healed. So you got to imagine, people have been here for years. And this particular man that Jesus came and found had been here 38 years. Now, he had been paralyzed, so you can imagine as he was running towards it, people were probably stepping on him, people were probably kicking him, right? And when Jesus walked up to him, he asked him an interesting question. Do you want to be healed? Do you want to be healed? It's a question. I think it's a very valid question. Do you want to be healed? And the man, instead of saying yes immediately, right, he says, "Sir, I don't have anyone to pick me up and take me to the water. How can I possibly be healed if I don't have anybody to take me there, to go?" Right? But this man, right, 38 years here, there's got to be some seed of hope in him. He figured at one point, at some time, there would be some way that he could get into that pool. So he remained there 38 years. And he waited for 38 years for one man to come. Of course, he didn't realize it was going to be Jesus, the one to come up to him and ask him that question. But nonetheless, it was Jesus that came up. Do you want to be healed? And Jesus basically didn't even pay attention to his statement, because the man, he was just giving the facts. Jesus is like, pick up your pallet, stand up, walk, and go home. All of us, if you paid attention to the hymns, every one of us is paralyzed in some way. And this last year, people have been paralyzed in fear, right? At the coronavirus, the plague that has struck the world. People have been paralyzed by it. People have been in so much fear that they don't leave their home, that they don't want to be around their family members. People have been locked into their houses. It was fear that ran rampant. It was fear that took control and gripped so many people. Different ways for people to be paralyzed. 1 year, over a year now, this has been happening. A paralyzation of fear. Then there's some people who are paralyzed by anger. Sometimes we get in disagreements with our spouses. Sometimes we get in disagreements with our family members. Sometimes we get in disagreements with our church family. And that anger paralyzes us from seeing the troubling of the waters, right? That source of life, the living water. And that anger sometimes divides us. People end up getting divorces. People end up killing each other. People end up leaving churches. People end up doing whatever it is because they are paralyzed by fear, by anger. And then there are some people paralyzed by sadness. Some people are paralyzed by depression. Some people are paralyzed by sickness. Whatever it is that you can imagine, you can be paralyzed by it. And you can sit there sometimes for 38 years waiting to get somebody to help you along the way, to pick you up, to carry you along the way. And sometimes it does take that long. This man that was sitting at the pool, he needed those 38 years. I know I look at things a little bit differently, but he needed those 38 years to be prepared to look and see, to receive that question. Do you want to be healed? That living source of water is available to every one of us. Every single person that has ever breathed, every single person that has ever lived, that living water, that spring of water, that place where we can go is available to the biggest saint and to the biggest sinner. It doesn't matter who it is, and usually those are the same people. Because they're the ones that realize that they are the chief among them. So what is it that we must do to be healed? Coming to church, that's only part of the equation. receiving communion, doing confession, all the things that you can check mark off the box, those are only parts of the things that allow you to help you to get to that living water. But it takes so much more. One of the things that cripples Christians the most, and I specify Christians because we are supposed to be the ones that are representative of Jesus Christ. One of the things that we are get crippled the most is by a lack of forgiveness. A lack of a time when there is no forgiveness, when there is no mercy, when there is no grace for the people that surround us. And sometimes it's the people that we're married to. Sometimes it's our family members. Sometimes it's the family that we go to church with, that we have the hardest time forgiving. Those are the things that keep us away from the living water. And Jesus is asking, do you want to be healed? Do you want to find a way to be made whole? Jesus came and he not only healed, right? He not only brought wholeness to people's bodies, but he also, more importantly, brought wholeness to people's souls. That is the key to our journey to get closer to God, is to allow God to heal us. And he's asking the question, do you want to be healed? Now we have two choices, right? We can do exactly like the man who was paralyzed for 38 years, but Lord, that statement, but Lord, but sir, right? That word but right at the beginning, that causes lots and lots of problems. Are you going to love your spouse? Yeah, but they're doing this to me. Are you going to be merciful and caring and forgiving to your children? Yeah, but they're doing this to me. Are you going to have mercy for the people that are in your life, at your job, at your church, at the people? Yeah, but. It's one of the most detrimental words that any of us can say when it comes to forgiveness. The yeah, buts. Forgiveness is the key. Mercy is the key. And grace. That uncreated grace that only God can show, that only God can bring. That day when Jesus walked up to that man who had been paralyzed for 38 years, it was grace that allowed him to point him out. And he walked right up to him. There were so many more people in that area that were paralyzed, blind, lame. And including in that area were the ones that were the most paralyzed, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They were the ones that needed the healing the most. But sometimes people like to be paralyzed. They are comfortable in their sin. Sometimes I'm comfortable being angry at my wife. Sometimes I'm comfortable being frustrated at my son. Sometimes I'm comfortable in those things. And then in the back of my mind, I hear that small voice, do you want to be healed? And I have a choice. Sir, but my wife really made me mad today. Sir, but my son really frustrated me today. Or I have the choice to say, yes, I do want to be healed. It's a simple equation. It's a yeah, but, or a yes, I want to be healed. What is holding us back? All of it. From becoming the men and women that we need to be. What is holding us back from taking that next step toward our sainthood? And I can't answer that question for you I can only answer that question for myself. And it takes a lot of time to wait for the Lord to come and say, do you want to be? Sometimes it takes 38, 48, 58, 68 years. But if you're willing, God will make you whole. And you will be able to see the people in your life, your spouse, your family members, your church family, and all the people that have frustrated us as we're watching the news and watching social media, that we will be able to see them the way Jesus saw that man that had been crippled for 38 years. We need to see people through his eyes. And if you start to do that, if we all start to do that, we will take our first steps towards our eternity and that mercy and grace of God. So let us glorify and praise the name of the Lord today. Let us worship him, and I hope I hear everybody's voices, and we can lift them up. Amen. Christ is risen.